They say there's a town that appears every 27 years. No one remembers building it. No one remembers it ever being on a map. But when it returns, someone always disappears. I never believed in ghost towns, not the kind that vanish and come back like clockwork. Not until I walked into one and almost never came back. My name is Eli Thompson. I make documentaries, strange ones. I chase urban myths, local ghost stories, the kind of tales people whisper around dying campfires. Not because I'm a thrill seeker, but because I lost my brother when we were kids. He vanished from a town that supposedly never existed. I never saw him again. Years passed. I buried myself in work, filming everything from haunted asylums to cursed forests. All of them left me empty. Until one night, while editing a throwaway interview, I heard something that changed everything. It was an old man in a retirement home, muttering nonsense except for one word. Raventon. My blood went cold. That was the name my brother had whispered, sobbing, just days before he disappeared. I began digging. There was no Raventon, not officially. No record, no map reference, no census data. It was like it had never existed. But the deeper I went, the more I found, bits and pieces. A girl's diary found in a thrift shop in Iowa. A fire-damaged news clipping in a sealed archive. A police report from 1974 that had been mysteriously withdrawn. All different places, but one recurring detail: Raventon. And then I found him. The only person ever documented as having returned from Raventon alive. His name was Jack Milner, and he'd been institutionalized for over 40 years in a private psychiatric facility outside Illinois. It took months, a fake identity, and more bribes than I'd like to admit, but eventually I got in to see him. He sat in a cold room, rocking gently, eyes glazed over. A nurse warned me. He hadn't spoken in decades, but as soon as I said Raventon, his eyes snapped into focus. He grabbed my wrist with unnatural strength and said, "It's not a town. It's a mouth. It eats people and keeps their ghosts." He screamed until they sedated him, but he'd said enough. The next morning I got a call. Jack Milner was dead. Heart failure, they said. But something told me that wasn't the whole story. I reviewed all my notes, all the rumors, all the files. A pattern emerged. Raventon appeared every 27 years, for 3 days. Then it vanished. The last appearance, 1999. That meant the next return would be this year, in October. It was already June. I knew I couldn't go alone, so I reached out to people I trusted. Mara, my audio tech, brilliant and fearless. Jonas, cameraman and ex-Marine, steady under pressure. Priya, my researcher, obsessed with occult history. And Benji, our drone operator, because we'd need eyes in the sky. I pitched it to them as a new documentary on forgotten towns. I didn't tell them about Raventon. Not yet. I wanted real reactions, and truthfully, I didn't know if I even believed it myself. We planned everything. Gear, supplies, satellite comms. We even brought a psychic just in case. The window of the town's return was October 15th to 18th. We arrived in Applegate County, Missouri on October 14th. The last known sighting of Raventon had come from these woods. We camped that night near the old train tracks, what the old newspaper clipping called the spine of Raventon. Everything was quiet, too quiet. At exactly 12:03 a.m., the temperature dropped, and there it was, where there had been only dense forest the day before. Now stood a town, not ruins, not overgrown foundations. A town, fully intact, gas pumps, a Thai diner, street lamps humming faintly, neon signs flickering. It was like someone had paused time in 1974 and hit play again. We stared, stunned. I remember Mara whispering, "This can't be real." But it was. We crossed the tree line and stepped into Raventon. The streets were silent but not dead. Radios inside stores buzzed softly. Lights flickered, clocks ticked. The cars parked outside looked like they'd been left just minutes ago. Split up just for 20 minutes to cover more ground. That was my first mistake. Jonas radioed in first. He'd found a schoolhouse. Inside, the chalkboard still had names written on it, children's names. All of them had been crossed out with red chalk except one, Clara. I froze. That was the name in the thrift store diary. The girl who'd written about the circle of ash and the bell that opens the door. I told Jonas not to touch anything, but his signal began to break, static, a crackling laugh. Then silence. We tried to find him, but the schoolhouse was empty. No Jonas. No tracks. No sign he'd ever been there, except for his camera playing on loop and footage of his own terrified face whispering, "It's watching us." We searched for Jonas for over 2 hours, street by street, building by building. No blood, no sign. Of struggle, just that eerie silence broken only by static from the radios and distant echoes we couldn't place. Then Mara screamed. We found her outside a barber shop, staring at something in the window. It was frosted glass except for a handprint from the inside. We went in. The chair still spun slowly. Clippers buzzed on the floor, plugged into an outlet. A towel was draped across a headrest, freshly damp. No one was there, except someone had written a word into the fogged mirror behind the counter. One word, run. Benji suggested we return to camp and regroup. I agreed, but as we headed back toward the tree line, it was gone. The trees were no longer there. Where we had entered from, there was now a long stretch of empty road leading into blackness. No trees, no stars, no sound, like we were floating on the edge of a void. Priya was shaking. This place, it's folding around us. We had no choice but to keep moving forward, deeper into the town. That's when we found the library. Most of the books were water damaged or decayed, but one stood out. A leather-bound journal locked in a glass case. There was a small brass plaque beneath it. Clara Whitmore, class of 1974. Mara broke the glass. Inside, the pages were intact, yellowed but legible, and horrifying. They made us go into the circle. The ash burned our skin. Father said it was for protection, but I think it was a trap. I heard the bell again tonight. 3 chimes. It always comes before someone disappears. I miss my brother. He went into the old church last night and never came out. Raventon is sick. It's not just haunted, it's alive and hungry. Benji tried flying the drone for recon. He launched it from the roof of the town hall. We watched the screen as it rose higher, first 50 feet, then 100. Then the footage began to warp. The sky turned green on the monitor. Static consumed the feed. And then nothing. The drone feed cut off. It didn't crash, it just vanished. He ran to check the airspace above. Clear, quiet, just one gone. That's when he whispered, "I think it doesn't want us to see what's above it." We decided to stay together. No more splitting up, but Raventon had other plans. At dusk we heard music, 70s rock coming from a small diner. The sign above it flickered, "Mabel's Home Cooking." We stepped inside. Everything was fresh, coffee steaming, plates set, like someone was expecting us. A small radio behind the counter played "Dream On" by Aerosmith on a loop. Benji grabbed his GoPro and began recording. He rounded a corner into the kitchen and never came back out. We sprinted in, gone, again, no back exit, no vents big enough. Just his GoPro is still rolling. We played the footage. Benji looked around the kitchen. He opened a walk-in freezer. Inside was a girl in a white dress, blonde, pale, smiling. Benji said, "Are you okay?" Then the girl whispered, "You're not supposed to be here." The camera dropped. Slam. Darkness. Priya broke down crying. This town's a loop, a memory, a trap. That's when the psychic we brought, whom I haven't mentioned yet because up until now she hadn't said a word, spoke up. Her name was Delia. She'd stayed oddly quiet, staring at the floor, mumbling to herself. But now her eyes were rolled back and she was drawing something in the dirt with her finger, a symbol, a circle with 3 arrows. "The bell is the anchor," she whispered. "It rings every night at midnight." "That's when the town takes someone?" I asked. "Takes them where?" She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face, and said, "Not where. When?" That night, as we tried to find shelter, something changed. Raventon looked newer, fresh. Paint on houses, new cars on the street. We passed a store and saw our own reflections, wearing clothes from the 1970s. Mara clutched her head and screamed, "It's changing us! It's making us part of it!" The journal warned this might happen. Clara had written, "If you hear the bell, don't look back. If you see yourself in the mirror, but you're smiling when you're not, you're already theirs." The first bell rang at 12 cast a.m. sharp. It came from the old church bell tower, which we hadn't noticed before, tall, blackened, looming, above the town. With each ring, the buildings around us aged backward. Trees turned from dead limbs to lush foliage. Roads uncracked. Lights glowed brighter. By the third chime, we heard footsteps, hundreds of them, but we saw no one. Only shadows moving behind curtains and faces pressed against upstairs windows, staring, unmoving, unblinking. Then Delia began, convulsing. She screamed, "Don't let them ring it again tomorrow, or you'll be part of Raventon forever." Then she collapsed. Gone. No body. Just the circle and arrows drawn in the dirt, still glowing faintly. We returned to the library. The journal had one last entry. It hadn't been there before. It read, "To leave Raventon, one must ring the bell backwards, 3 times, before the sun rises. But beware, the town won't like that. And neither will she." Underneath was a drawing, a girl in a white dress, standing in front of the bell tower, with her face torn out. Time wasn't moving the same anymore. We didn't feel hunger, or cold, or even exhaustion. It was like Raventon was suspending us, trapping us in a moment stretched far too long. Yet each time the bell rang, something shifted. Us, the streets, the air. Almost as if reality folded slightly inward. And then we saw her, the little girl. She stood in the middle of Main Street, just beyond the glow of the streetlights. Her blonde hair shimmered like polished thread, and her white dress hung stiff as though it had never been worn by a real child. Mara whispered, "That's the girl from Benji's footage." I nodded. My breath fogged the air. The girl didn't move, didn't blink. Then she smiled, and the lights behind her blew out one by one. Pop, 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 until we stood in utter blackness. Then her voice rang out from behind us, soft, childlike. "You shouldn't be here." We spun around. Nothing. Then again, louder this time. "You shouldn't be here." We turned again. This time she was right in front of us. Her mouth gaped unnaturally wide. Her eyes were hollow sockets filled with writhing black veins. A noise came from her throat that wasn't a scream but static, buzzing, glitching like broken radios. We ran. The buildings blurred. Our feet didn't feel the ground. We passed a mirror shop, just for a moment, and caught a glimpse of ourselves. Only, we weren't ourselves anymore. Our reflections were smiling. We weren't. We took refuge in an old school building. It was locked. Mara kicked the door down, only for us to find ourselves already inside. I was standing at the blackboard, writing. Benji was in the corner, whispering to himself. Priya sat in the front row crying. And Mara, she was at the teacher's desk, dead-eyed, mouthing words silently. "Ring the bell backward, ring the bell backward, ring the bell backward." We backed away in terror. "What the hell is this?" Mara asked. Delia had warned us. The town loops memories, uses them, turns them into traps. This wasn't just a haunted place. It was a parasitic echo chamber, and we were becoming echoes. Clara's journal mentioned the blood bell, a ritual done at the bell tower's altar, a way to either free a soul or permanently bind it to Raventon. We had to reach the bell. Only one person had ever tried Clara, and she failed, but not before leaving behind instructions. You must approach the tower just before dawn. Light 5 candles, 1 for each soul. Draw the memory circle in salt and blood, then strike the bell 3 times, backwards in time. But be warned, she will try to stop you. That night, as we approached the bell tower, Mara stopped suddenly. She held her head, whispered, "I remember now." We asked what. My sister. She went missing in 1998, near here. We thought she drowned. She looked up. Her face was pale. She was taken by Raventon. Then her body lifted off the ground. Something invisible held her in midair, arching her back. We heard the bell, one single chime, and Mara exploded into a swirl of black moths. They fluttered around us, whispering, she's gone, you're next." We were down to 3. With Mara gone, the town rebooted itself. Windows shattered inward in perfect synchrony. Street lamps turned red, then blue, then black. Buildings melted into their foundations, like wax. The sky fractured like glass. We looked up, and through the cracks above us we saw memories. A woman screaming in 1954, children burning dolls in 1972, Clara kneeling at the altar in 1981, blood on her face, sobbing. Each crack showed another Raventon. A different year, all looping into one. That's when I realized Raventon doesn't appear every 27 years. It exists in every 27th year, all at once, and it pulls souls from any time, past or future. Priya dropped to her knees. We're not in 2025 anymore. I pulled out my phone. No signal. The date, October 13th, 1972. The tower stood at the town center, twisted metal, fungal walls, steps made from mismatched stone. It pulsed like it had a heartbeat. We climbed. With each level, the sound of a heartbeat grew louder. Then we saw her again, the little girl, waiting. But this time, she spoke clearly. "If you ring it backward, the town dies, and if the town dies, I die." Priya stepped forward. "Then it's you or us." The girl split open, her form unraveling into something grotesque. Hundreds of faces screaming. One face was Mara's, another was mine. We found the bell at the top, old, cracked, stained with something dark. Priya cut her palm, drew the memory circle, lit the candles, and handed me the iron striker. "Do it." I raised the striker and struck backward against the grain of time. The bell howled. The tower shook. The girl's scream filled the air, but not from her mouth, from the town itself. We had one down, 2 to go, but Raventon wasn't going to let us finish. As I raised the striker for the second chime, something snatched Priya, clawed hands from the walls. It dragged her toward a gaping hole in the tower floor. She fought, screaming my name. I tried to pull her back, but she looked at me, calm now, and said, "Finish it, then let go." The hole swallowed her silence. I was the last one left. I raised the striker and hit the bell again. Second chime. The town screamed. I was alone. Priya had fallen. Mara was gone. Benji vanished long before the first chime. Now it was just me and the bell. One more strike. But before I could lift the iron striker again, the wind outside the tower turned violent. The world twisted. The bell glowed blood red. Then, footsteps. Heavy, deliberate, coming up the tower behind me. I turned slowly, and there, ascending the final step, was my mother. She looked exactly the same as she did in the only photograph I had of her. Red hair, long coat, kind eyes, but I never knew her. She disappeared when I was 2. Dad always said she ran away. But here she was, standing in front of me, inside Raventon, in a town that shouldn't exist. "Eli," she whispered, "you came back." Back? She stepped closer, and for a moment, I almost let myself believe it. But then her skin cracked, hairline fissures running across her face. Her smile turned too wide, and her voice deepened, warped. "You were born of this place." My blood froze. Wait, what? She or it continued. "Your mother was taken in 1981. She was the sacrifice that year. But the ritual went wrong. She lived just long enough to give birth to you. Raventon didn't just take. Sometimes it kept." I staggered back. My mind reeled. "I'm not from here," I whispered. The thing smiled. "No, you are the only one from here. You are the core. The reason the loop hasn't broken." I clutched the striker. If what it said was true, I wasn't here to end the town. I was here to complete the ritual. The wind howled like a wounded animal. The tower bled from the walls, thick, dark fluid, dripping like tears, but I had no choice. I raised the striker. "Goodbye," I whispered, and I struck the bell one last time. Boom! The bell screamed. The entire town convulsed. Streets cracked open like eggshells. Houses folded in on themselves. The sky shattered, and from the cracks in the earth below, thousands of hands reached up, clawing, grabbing, screaming. Every soul Raventon had taken, rising at once. But they didn't attack. They turned upward, toward the sky, and began to chant. "Return the core, return the blood, return the bell." The tower collapsed beneath me. I fell through nothing. I landed in what felt like water, but it wasn't wet. It was memory, black, infinite. I floated in a space where time didn't matter. All around me, visions played like broken films. Mara as a child, watching her sister disappear into a fog. Benji alone in a field surrounded by faceless figures. Clara carving runes into her skin. My mother screaming as a hooded figure tore her soul from her body. And then I saw myself, but older, wearing priestly robes, standing in the bell tower, smiling. "No!" I screamed, trying to swim away. But the memory clung to me like oil. A voice rang through the darkness. "You must choose." I was back in the bell tower, but not in the present. This was 1981. Clara knelt before me. She looked terrified, and I was holding the striker, about to sacrifice her. "No, this isn't me." "But it was," the voice said. "You are both savior and curse. One final choice. And Raventon ends or begins again." Suddenly, Clara stood behind me, alive. She looked older, wiser. Her eyes were red with tears. "I never died," she said softly. "I became the keeper. I've waited for you to remember. You're not evil, Eli. But you must decide. Decide what? To sacrifice yourself or take another soul." It all made sense. Every 27 years the bell rang because I rang it. Every soul was taken because I was trying to save myself. Raventon was a mirror of my broken, cursed memory. There was only one way out. One way to break the cycle. I nodded. "Choose, Bami." I climbed the altar, laid myself in the circle. Clara began to chant. I felt the town pulling at me, resisting, screaming, begging to live. But I closed my eyes, accepted the fate I'd denied for generations. And as the bell tolled, one last time, not backward but forward, I vanished. Weeks later, rescue crews found nothing but scorched trees and collapsed stones where Raventon once stood. No signs of buildings, no signs of bodies, just a single bell, cracked in two, and a camera. Benji's, still recording. When they played it back, the final frame showed my face smiling, as a voice echoed faintly in the background. "Thank you for ending it." And that was the story of the town that came back every 27 years, until someone finally said, "No more. If you ever hear a bell chime where no bell exists, don't answer, and whatever you do, don't look back." Thanks for watching this terrifying, scary story. Hoped you liked it. If you watched till the end, please comment "end" so that we could understand you were with us till the end. If you've ever had a creepy experience, let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear your stories. As well as, please let us know where are you watching from. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more spine-chilling tales. Last but not the least, before leaving, please check out the horror story ebook. Link in the description. See you in the next one. Until next time, stay safe and stay out of the shadows. Good night.